Warm salutations from the Sovereign Self. This video introduces, including an orated introduction, the introduction to the book of Clairvoyance and Occult Powers. Of course, this is backwards for you. By William Walker Atkinson, using his pen name, Swami Panchadasi. Now, in a prior video of mine called Clairvoyance and Telepathy, Vision and Thought for Action, I promised to you that I would give you practical instruction, that I would be providing for you practical instruction in the development of clairvoyance and telepathy. This is in accordance with that promise. Now, in that video, I also gave you a summary of some of the trips and traps along the way in the development of these two mental faculties known as psychic faculties. And I want you to review those trips and traps, hazards and dangers. I want you to become familiar with them. I also want you to become very familiar with all of the information in that video. And that video also points to two other ones. Well, one is a series of videos. It's called the Arcane Series. It's a 4-book series written by William Walker Atkinson, orated by me, already here for you. It's the arcane teaching, the arcane formulas, vril or vital magnetism, and the mystery of sex or sex polarity. I want you to become quite familiar with those, paying particular attention to the development of selfhood or egohood, true selfhood, your relationship with the absolute, and your control of vril or vital magnetism. Pay particular attention to those. Follow the instruction accordingly. I also pointed you to a prior posted video of my own called Attention, the general fact, technique, rule, and solution. I want you to attend to the material in that video and follow the indications therein. Okay, consider those things to be prerequisite to the material here. And there will be other things, as I insinuated, or as I told you in my Clairvoyance and Telepathy, Vision and Thought for Action video, that I will be providing you with other information that I consider to be key to your augmented safety and progress in your developments of clairvoyance and telepathy. I'm going to go ahead, just because I feel like it, go ahead and present you this information here, this practical instruction in clairvoyance and telepathy, maybe in parallel with writing and posting some other material, this augmenting material, or maybe do that later. But I want you to pay attention to that other information because it will be key to your success, okay, and your safety. All right, now I want to tell you give you two other things here in this introductory video. One, the table of contents, and two, the written introductions. You're going to have to bear with me here with my glasses on and the strange reflection that they cause. There is no, I have tried to find and could not, an online version, a free downloadable or copyable version of this book online. It's not available. All there is this book. This is an original edition, 1916, with the original picture inside that you can see. It's a pretty cool old book, actually. The table of contents is Lesson 1, the astral senses. 2, telepathy versus clairvoyance. 3, telepathy explained. 4, scientific telepathy. 5, mind reading and beyond. 6, clairvoyant psychometry. 7, clairvoyant crystal gazing. 8, clairvoyant reverie. 9, simple clairvoyance. 10, clairvoyance of distant scenes. excuse me, 11, clairvoyance of the past, excuse me again, 12, clairvoyance of the future, 13, second sight, prevision, etc., 14, astral body traveling, 15, strange astral phenomena, 16, psychic influence, its laws and principles, 17, personal psychic influence over others, 18, psychic influence at a distance, excuse me, once again, 19, laws of psychic attraction, and 20, psychic and magnetic healing. You will notice that numerous of the topics here in the lessons in this book are not ones that I am specifically myself presenting this material to you for, such as mental influence in general, astral travel, astral body traveling. These are not my specific goal in orating this book, but I'm not going to leave the chapters out. If I'm going to orate the book, I'm going to orate the entire book. You will notice also that some of these subjects are dealt with in certain of his other books more individually, such as this, another original publication, Mind Reading. Well, there's a chapter in Clairvoyance and Occult Powers here, you may recall, I just read. Mind Reading. So this material is covered in certain of his other books. There's a separate book on telepathy itself, just written by William Walker Atkinson, just telepathy. But this book kind of contains it all. I'm going to go ahead and orate it for you. You might not find this book anywhere unless you pay for it and get an original copy. I'm not even sure whether it has been reprinted. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on to the introduction. In preparing this series of lessons for students of Western lands, I have been compelled to proceed along lines exactly opposite to those which I would have chosen had these lessons been for students in India. Interesting that Atkinson discusses things in this manner when he uses the name Swami Panchadasi. He was not in India. He was not a Hindu. He was not a Swami. It's just kind of interesting that he goes about things in this manner when he uses the name Swami Panchadasi. I kind of like it myself. Interesting character, Atkinson. And he says, I do this because of the diametrically opposed mental attitudes of the students of these two several lands. The student in India expects the teacher to state positively the principles involved and the methods whereby these principles may be manifested, together with frequent illustrations, generally in the nature of fables or parables, serving to link the new knowledge to some already known thing. The Hindu student never expects or demands anything in the nature of proof of the teacher's statements of principle or method. In fact, he would regard it as an insult to the teacher to ask for the same. Consequently, he does not look for or ask specific instances of or illustrations in the nature of scientific evidence or proof of the principles taught. He may ask for more information, but solely for the purpose of bringing out some point which he has not grasped. But he avoids as a pestilence any question seeming to indicate argument, doubt of what is being taught him, or of the nature of a demand for proof or evidence. The Western student, on the other hand, is accustomed to maintaining the skeptical attitude of mind, the scientific attitude of doubt, and the demand for proof, and the teacher so understands it. Both are accustomed to illustrations bringing out the principles involved, but these students must not be fanciful or figurative. They must be actual cases, well authenticated and vouched for as evidence. In short, the Western teacher is expected to actually prove to his students his principles and methods before he may expect them to be accepted. This, of course, not from any real doubt or suspicion of the veracity or ability of the teacher, but merely because the Western mind expects to question and be questioned in this way in the process of teaching and learning. Consequently, in this series of lessons, I have sought to follow the Western method rather than the Hindu. So far as is possible, I have avoided the flat positive statement of principles and methods, and have sought to prove each step of the teaching. Of course, I have been compelled to assume the existence of certain fundamental principles in order to avoid long and technical, metaphysical, and philosophical discussions. I have also had to content myself with the positive flat assertion of the existence of the astral plane, the Akashic records, prana, etc., which are fundamental postulates of Hindu philosophy and occult science. For these are established solely by the experience of those who are able to function on the higher planes themselves. But beyond this, I have sought to prove by direct and positive evidence adapted to the Western mind every step of my teaching and methods. In offering this scientific proof, I have purposely, omitted, except in a few instances, all mention of occult or psychic phenomena occurring in India, and have confined myself to instances occurring in Western lands to Western persons. Moreover, I have avoided quoting and citing Hindu authorities, and have instead quoted and cited from authorities well known and respected in Western lands, such as the Society for Psychical Research, and the prominent scientists interested in the work of the said society. In this way, I have sought to furnish the Western student with examples, cases, and illustrations familiar to him and easily referred to. Had I cited Indian cases, I might be accused of offering proof that could not be easily verified, and quoting persons unknown to my readers. There is a wealth of such cases and illustrations in India, naturally, but these as a rule are traditional and are not available in printed form, and these would not likely be very satisfactory to the Western student. I must, however, positively and firmly state that while these cases and illustrations, these quotations and citations are purely Western, the principles they illustrate and prove are among the oldest known to Hindu occult science and philosophy at the same time. In fact, having been accepted as proven truth in India for centuries past, there is very little demand for further proof thereof on the part of the Hindus. In the Western world, however, these things are comparatively new and must be proved and attested accordingly. So, as I have said, I have cut the cloth of my instruction to conform with the pattern favored for the Western garment of knowledge. So far as the illustrations and cases, the quotations and citations are concerned, these are purely Western and familiar to the student. But when it comes to the principles themselves, this is another matter. I must be pardoned for stating that these are the outgrowth of Hindu thought and investigation, and that he who would discover their roots must dig around the tree of the wisdom of the East, which has stood the storms and winds of thousands of years. But the branches of this mighty tree are wide-spreading, and there is room for many Western students to rest in its shade and shelter. In these lessons, I have referred occasionally to my two little books entitled The Astral World and The Human Aura, respectively. To those who are interested in these subjects, I recommend these little books. They are sold at a nominal price and contain much that will be helpful to the student of Hindu occult science. They are not required, however, to complete the understanding of the subjects treated upon in these lessons, and are mentioned and recommended merely as supplementary reading for the student who wishes to take little side excursions away from the main trip covered here in these lessons. I trust that my students will find the pleasure and satisfaction in studying these lessons that I have in writing them. Swami Panchadasi, William Walker Atkinson. So, the next video in this series will be Lesson 1, which again is, the astral senses. Be well.